Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. My name is Malescu and I am the owner of Malescu Law, a law firm based in Miami, Florida, specializing in business, corporate and US immigration. We can assist you with all your immigration needs regardless of where you are currently located or where you plan to go in the United States. Today we are going to speak about the particularities of E-2 investor visa for UK citizens who are looking to invest in a US business and come to the United States to develop and direct that business. But before we get started, please subscribe to our channel by clicking the bell button or the subscribe button. The United Kingdom and citizens of the UK represent the third largest foreign investors in the United States, investing approximately $600 billion yearly in the United States. Conversely, the United States is the largest foreign investor in the United Kingdom. Today, we are going to speak about the E-2 visa, the E-2 investor visa. What is an E-2 visa, who can qualify for an E-2 visa, also the requirements and the process to apply for the E-2 in the UK. The E-2 visa is a non-immigrant visa for the United States that allows UK citizens to invest a substantial amount of capital in a US business and come to the United States in order to develop and direct the business. In order to qualify for the E-2 visa, you can start a business from scratch in the United States. You can purchase an existing business or franchise, including purchasing assets of the business or purchasing percentage ownership in the business, or you can choose to invest in an existing business that you already own in the United States. With the E-2 visa, as a UK investor, you can also bring managers, executives, and specialized knowledge employees that are essential to the US business from the UK, as long as the employees also hold UK citizenship. Regarding family members, as an E-2 visa holder, you can bring your spouse and children to the United States on an E-2 visa. Your spouse with an E-2 visa will have unrestricted right to work in the United States, meaning that they will be able to work for the E-2 business, start their own business, or work full-time or part-time in the United States. Now, in order to qualify for the E-2 visa, you must have a passport from the United Kingdom. If you don't have a UK passport because you are only a permanent resident of the United Kingdom, then you will not be able to qualify for the E-2 visa based on the treaty with the UK. However, even if you are a permanent resident of the UK, if your country of citizenship from where you have a passport also has a treaty, an E-2 treaty with the United States, then you may still be able to apply for the E-2 visa under your country of citizenship, under the treaty with your country of citizenship. The E-2 visa for UK citizens can be issued for a maximum period of 5 years and can be renewed indefinitely as long as the US business is successful. And now we are going to speak about the requirements for the E-2 visa and then the process to apply for E-2 visa at the US Consulate in UK. UK investors must meet the following E-2 visa requirements in order to apply. 1. The investor has invested or is in the process of investing in a US business. Those of you UK citizens who are purchasing a business or franchise can use the purchase price as an irrevocable investment for the purpose of obtaining an E-2 visa. This means that the purchase price of the business will be considered the irrevocable investment in order for you to apply and obtain an E-2 visa. Now, for those of you who are investing in a new business, you can invest money in marketing, inventory, equipment, salaries for employees, professional fees such as attorney's fees, and any other expenses that your business needs, including leasing premises or purchasing real estate as part of starting the business, will be considered irrevocable investment. However, keep in mind that the investment must be at risk at the time you apply for the E-2 visa, meaning that you stand to lose all or part of the capital invested if the business does not succeed or the E-2 visa is not approved. 2. The business must be real and active. This means that your US business must produce goods or services that can be offered to the public and cannot be a passive investment that only holds, for example, bond stocks or real estate. 3. The investment must be substantial. Now, you need to understand there is no set amount of US dollars that you need to invest in the US business in order to qualify for the E-2 visa. And also keep in mind there's no guarantee that just because you invest a higher amount, you will obtain the E-2 visa. The requirement is that you invest an amount that is sufficient to give the US business a real chance to succeed based on the location of the business and also the nature of the business. So in certain cases, businesses can be capital intensive, but in others they can require less capital in order to succeed and to start. So for example, if you are planning to start a consulting company in the United States, for example in Central Florida, then you may be able to do that with $60,000, and that $60,000 investment will be sufficient in order to start this consulting business. But on the other hand, if you are planning to invest money and start a restaurant in Miami, for example, or in Los Angeles or in New York or any other large metropolitan areas, or you want to start a hotel, not a restaurant, but maybe a hotel or a manufacturing plant, then for sure $60,000 will not be considered a substantial amount given what you are investing in, the nature of your business. So there you will need to invest a lot more money in order to be able to qualify for the E-2. Again, what constitutes substantial investment really depends on the nature of the business and the location. As a general rule of thumb, investing around $100,000 is recommended, but again keep in mind that while $100,000 may work for certain businesses and may be substantial for certain businesses, it may not be substantial for other businesses, such as when you open a restaurant or you open a hotel. That $100,000 will not be viewed as substantial investment given the of course the line of business, but also the location, because you may be able to start in different location in more rural areas. Maybe you will be able to start those specific businesses with less money. 4. Business is not marginal. At the time of application for E-2 business, the business must be viable, meaning that it has the potential to generate revenue in the future enough to be able to hire US workers and also contribute to the US economy by paying taxes and creating jobs. It cannot be marginal in the sense that the US business needs to have the potential to generate income that is more than just enough income to cover you and your family's expenses in the United States. And finally, 5. UK applicant intends to depart the United States when the E-2 status ends. As a UK investor, you must leave the United States and intend to leave the United States when your E-2 status ends. However, keep in mind that just because you have this intent to leave the United States when the E-2 ends and not stay in the United States illegally, that does not mean you cannot apply for an E-2 visa. You can always renew your E-2 visa or E-2 status while maintaining the intent to depart the United States when the E-2 status ends. So just because you are required by law to maintain this intention does not mean that you cannot actually go and renew your E-2 visa or your E-2 status. You can always do that once your E-2 visa approaches expiration or your E-2 status is about to expire. Keep in mind the same rule applies to those of you who are coming to the United States on an E-2 visa as employees. And now let's speak about the E-2 visa application process for UK citizens. So once your E-2 visa application package is ready, you must submit it to the US Consulate in the UK. The US Consulate in London will review your application within 90 business days from submission. After the review period, you will be invited to attend an in-person E-2 visa interview at the US Consulate in London. You must schedule your E-2 interview within 90 days of receiving the invitation for the interview. Keep in mind that there is no expedited processing at the US Consulate in London. And one major particularity that you need to be aware of is that at the time you apply for the E-2 visa, you must prove a residency in the United Kingdom. So if you are a UK citizen that is not residing, who is not residing in the UK, then you will not be able to apply for an E-2 visa at the US Consulate in London. At the time of application, you must provide proof of UK residency, meaning that you must provide evidence issued within 3 to 6 months prior to the date of application showing that you reside in the United Kingdom. And evidence to prove residency include ownership of primary residence in the United Kingdom, lease payments for your property in the UK, pay stubs from the UK, mortgage payments, bank statements, payment of inland revenue taxes, and other documents that can show you actually reside in the United Kingdom. And the US Consulate in London has the discretion to ask for additional documents in order to prove UK residency. Another question we often get is, can a UK citizen apply for an E-2 visa in the United States? Well, you cannot apply for an E-2 visa in the United States, but you can apply for a change of status in the United States. However, keep in mind that if you have entered the United States on an ESTA, then you will not be able to change your status to E-2 in the United States. You can only change your status to E-2 in the United States if you have entered on a B1, B2 visa or another type of visa. But if you are in the United States on an ESTA, then you will not be able to change status to E-2 in the United States. And also, Keep in mind that E-2 status is not the same as obtaining an E-2 visa at the US Consulate, because an E-2 visa is an entry document that has a validity of up to 5 years for UK citizens that will allow you to travel in and out of the United States, while an E-2 status is not an entry document. You will only have the E-2 status as long as you stay in the United States, but once you leave the United States, then you will not be able to re-enter with that E-2 status document from the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services back in the United States, and you will actually have to go to a US consulate abroad and obtain an E-2 visa. This is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, and if you need to get in touch with us, you have our contact information in this video and below this video. We will see you soon. Bye.